Okay, so this is the YTD components for YTD components where we decided to use Sravz assets grid, and then the CRUD grid we discussed about. So first I'll give more details on the YTD component. So if you see here, we have the YTD component implemented in analytics year to date. So yeah, we don't have much information about this code, so it's not helpful. So what we have to do is, if you go to charts, in the charts we have complete description of all the assets. So we have to use this grid, and if you use this same component, you'll also get the filters like this. So we have to copy this one and show it in the year-to-date analysis screen here. So for that, here are the steps. First, you have to use the service file. We have a service file here, assetsservice.ts. In that service file, we have get all assets s3 URL. So we go to that service file. It's up here somewhere. So yeah, get all assets s3 URL. It's in this service file. So pick this service file, and in YTD codes resolver, use that service file. Yeah, YTD codes resolver, import the, I have your fundamental service, right? Just remove this fundamental service and put the asset service, and then here return this dot asset service dot this function, get all assets s3 URL. So once you do that, in the YTD component, you have so you put that index, remember, for filtering. If response code, you put an index. So you could remove this thing and just get whatever the list of assets you get. It should be an array of assets. So you'll be getting an array of these items. These items. So if you go to the assets component where those charts are displayed, it is an I asset service. Not here. Asset service, asset components.ts, ng on in it. See, I'm getting this dot assets, and assets is nothing but I asset array. So this is an I asset array. Each is an asset type. So you could just use this assets is equal to asset array and use the same method here the way I'm getting from the route snapshot. And then in the component, I pass that to grid assets, and then I selection row is multiple, row mode is multiple. We have to select multiple rows, and then once we select multiple rows there, this handler is called with an event object with those assets which we selected. So if you see here, once I click on those, I get the whatever assets are selected, I get that in the event handler. So you just have to copy this and paste it in the YTD component. So that's what I mentioned here. Then add to the route. Once you add to the route, you will get the assets in the snapshot, route snapshot, like we did in the chart screen here in the assets component. Like use the same and add it to your in the YTD component. And like I mentioned, on asset selected, instead of on asset selected, you could use on YTD code select. Okay, or else just rename this YTD code selected to on assets selected. So maybe you can just copy paste this event handler in YTD codes. And if you see here, we are only sending 10 assets, first 10 assets to the backend service. So if you see in this screen, though they are like 1673 into 10 number of assets, we cannot display the charts of all of them. It will be a lot of data. So what we did is, in spite of selecting multiple rows where we have selected everything in the grid, we only use the first 10. So that's why we are displaying only the first 10 charts. So this way we will not, overload the UI. So in the same way, you're going to send the 10 codes. Once those 10 codes are sent to the YTD component, like for example, if I select 10 codes here also I have the same concept where though I'm selecting everything, this event handler is implemented that way. Though I'm selecting, say, everything, so I've selected everything in the grid, but it's going to send only the first 10 to the backend, and the backend is returning the data for those first 10. So the whole idea is to get rid of this grid and use that assets grid we have in the charts page. So that's the details about this chart. The second task is to use a demo component. So use this grid, just place this in the UI for now. Once you have this example placed, we can modify this to fit to our requirement. So it has a CRUD based, you can delete rows. Why is it not working? You can delete rows. Let me refresh. So if you see this example, you can delete a row, add a row. Oh, it's deleting. It just doesn't show. So you can add row, done. Commit. So it's discard, commit, add row, commit will in commit will send it to the backend. So this example is good. So the idea is to just display this example in the UI. So for that, I wrote how to do that. Create a subdirectory in grid alerts in Ignite UI grid. We'll just add one more grid. So in Ignite UI, okay, where is it? Ignite UI. We have many grids. Just add another grid called grid hyphen alerts, and then in there just copy paste this whole things. I couldn't get, I think for some reason they disabled Stack Blitz and this one, so we have to copy the files from here. Just copy them and place them in grid alerts here. And once that grid works here, we need to display in the main UI. So the way we usually do in the main UI is we have to write a wrapper component which will call the infragistics grid. So for that, just copy. See, we have a carriers component. It's just a wrapper. It doesn't do anything. We create a component and we have a template. In there we have some HTML. So just something like that. Create a simple component and add that component to the routes. So the routes will be UT routes. routes.ts. Like for carriers, I added the component. Right? Just add a component here so we can navigate it to carriers or alerts in your case. So for example, if I go to here and type in carriers, I should go to carriers. See, I'm going to the carriers page, something like that. So once you add that, we'll display this demo component there. Once we have that basic component working, we'll enhance it to fit our needs. So that's what I mentioned. Create a new directory in app called grid alerts component and display the grid alerts component. So for reference, you could use carriers as a reference, which is just a basic component. Add it to the routes, call it alerts. We'll bring up alerts component. And then this alert component will display this demo. I hope it's clear. If you have any questions, please let me know. Thanks.